After three consecutive postseasons in which the Phillies were unable to clear the World Series holder and a quieter offseason than most fans had hoped, are we just underrating this Phillies team? And is running it back the right option based on the core that we have in place? We're going to break it down, me and Luke Arcaini, right here on Phillies Digest. Again, it has been a quieter offseason than I think any of us hoped or anticipated here. But nonetheless, Luke, I tossed you right off the bat. Is this Phillies team still a World Series contender?
Yeah, they absolutely are. And if you think they're not, you're outrageous. Like in all seriousness, like if you think enough has changed this offseason to where it takes them from a contender to not a contender, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
They have arguably the best pitching staff in baseball. They have a really good core of stars. They have supporting pieces that while they're not always, at their best, I think they still have some pretty good sort of supporting pieces. And I mean, like, it's still a very good roster top to bottom. Like there's not five rosters in baseball that I would take over this Phillies team.
Yeah.
And yes, you can continue to do the they choke when it matters thing. Yeah, well, 29 other teams also choke when it matters. One team doesn't every year. So like if you're sitting here and you're like out on the Phillies, like it's kind of idiotic to me, to be honest. Like I get like if you're tired of getting your hopes up and they continue to, come up short, then I understand, I guess. I guess I understand. But the Phillies have never been a winning organization.
No. One of the
And no
most
matter
losingest.
what, the most losingest organizations in sports history. If you continue to sit here and say that, I think you need to sort of take a step back and realize this sort of era that we're in. Because while they're not bringing home championships, this is one of the best eras of the entire Phillies history. And I know that's sad, I guess you could say, based on the history, but there hasn't been many times where they've made the playoffs and continued to give themselves a chance for, 3, 4, 5 years in a row.
Yeah, and let's not forget just how dark the outlook was or how bleak the outlook was just a few years ago before the Bryce Harper era, before all these other pieces have come in, the Trey Turners, the Nick Castellanos. And really what sparked me to kind of bringing up this video topic here is I did take a scroll over to shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook, one of my employers there, and taking a look at the odds here. We have the Phillies sitting at fifth place, so behind the Dodgers in odds for the World Series, behind the Braves, behind the Yankees, and behind the Mets. So really, the only notable change here, in my opinion, is the Mets because of obviously the Juan Soto sweepstakes. And I understand it is frustrating when looking about the amount of money spent this offseason across the NL East, that the Mets absolutely breaking the bank with Soto being the clear source there. The Washington Nationals also spending more than the Phillies, but they still spending more than the Braves and significantly more than the Marlins, who have not really done anything this offseason here. And this is not just this offseason for this Phillies team. A great part of this was building continuity, having the same options, having these pieces in place. And I think that's kind of what this team is banking on, that when you keep this core together, if they get hot at the right time, which we have seen for stretches and we've absolutely seen them go cold at the wrong time as well, that can be the secret there. So I think the honest assessment from Dave Dombrowski in the front office is there's not much we can do outside of what we currently have to improve this team in a drastic way, that the best bet for this franchise is to really hope that this team can toughen up, grind one out, and get hot at the right time. Do you think that's fair to assess, Luke?
Absolutely. And I think now that I kind of look at it from a broader point of view after the season is over, and obviously now that we're in the off season, I feel like a lot of people were saying, blow it up, blow it up, blow it up. Things need to be changed, but not many teams blow up a roster that gives themselves to win a championship 3 years in a row. And yes, they haven't won the championship. But yeah, I mean, right here on the screen, you have the best starting pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
You have probably the best rotation in baseball. You still have Bryce Harper. Like, that's a pretty damn good guy to sort of like power your team there. Schwarber. I know we didn't get, everything we wanted so far from Trey Turner. But you like this is still a very, very, very good baseball team. And I think blowing it up now, sort of looking back on it, would kind of been a stupid idea. Like I don't think you trade everyone because they lost in the first round. You don't ditch all your guys. You don't trade Kyle Schwarber. You don't like these things. I don't think they make sense. Like now looking back on it because it's it's not it doesn't come around often where you have a team that is in the hunt every year to win the World Series, and that's not just the Phillies. I mean, we've seen teams like the Texas Rangers. Texas shouldn't have won the World Series the year that they won it. They got hot at the right time. Next year they stunk. Like that's baseball. Like you don't. I still think the Mets aren't going to be that good next year. I don't think they have a good enough roster. I get they signed Juan Soto, and this isn't me just screaming about it because I absolutely despise the Mets. I
Rightfully
still don't
so.
think they have that good of a roster. Their starting pitching is not good. They need good starting pitching for 162 games, especially after last year. If this National League continues to be kind of how it was in that playoff push last year, there's not going to be a ton of room for mistakes. And that Mets specifically that starting rotation it's not set up for success right now. So while I do think this is going to be another big year for the Braves, I am pretty high on the Braves going into this season. I think they just lost out on a playoff spot in a season where basically every starter
Right.
was either out for a month or out for the year, and they still sort of found their way in the mix. But like this Phillies team is still really good. These odds speak for themselves. Like they should be in the sort of the upper echelon of these teams. And I think if you don't have them in there, I think you're blinded by them losing to a division rival in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously that is what happened, not an ideal thing, and you can view it as taking a little bit of a step back compared to the past 2 seasons, but the reality
For
is
sure.
things happen.
For
Like,
sure.
yeah, if you had lost to the Mets 2 rounds later, and I get that wouldn't be how the bracket played out, but the bottom line being the reality is you still don't win a World Series here. Now, to turn it kind of internal on this Phillies team, if you were to point to your biggest concern right now, you've spoken pretty glowingly of the starting pitching. We've kind of seen some variety in the bullpen. Obviously, Jeff Hoffman leaving, a couple other issues there. There has not been any movement on Alec Boehm trade. What would you say your biggest concern currently with this Phillies team is?
Yeah, I think it would probably be. I mean, I would still love one more bullpen arm.
Okay.
I think I've sort of mentioned that a lot. I think one more bullpen arm would really set this bullpen up nice. Um, but at the same time, I mean, if they're going to, maybe look for one more bat, I still think the outfield,
Yeah.
sort of the left side of the outfield, I think could get a little dicey. That obviously depends what you get from Max Kepler. If you get you know, if you get the sort of really good Kepler, I think they're set up for some pretty nice success there. But obviously he is a question mark. He's new, so
Never
you
played
don't
left field.
exactly. But I think the defense has been flying above average his entire career, and I think sort of like a transition to left isn't going to be as bad as maybe some people think. But I mean, yeah, I would probably say a bullpen arm, but at the same time, they still have some pretty damn good arms sort of in that bullpen. So like I think what's so frustrating for me is and this just sort of happens just because but I it's unfortunate to me that people are like slowly getting out on a team obviously because of their results. And I get it. Like they lost to the Mets in the first round, but like there's a very good chance they could blow this core up in years once they get old and this team could be horrible again for the next 15 years like they were from 2011 to 2022. I always say this, if people truly sat here and they watched the last 20 years of Phillies baseball like
Yeah.
I did, you enjoy this a lot more than the people that jumped on 3 years ago. So I always use these kind of things just as a reminder to people. It's like I get it, they're frustrating, but like this is still one of the most successful runs that we've had for this organization.
Yeah, no, 100% there. And when you speak about past results wearing down the outlook, you should see the comment section over on Sixers Digest right now. But man,
Oh man, let me tell you.
so at
Let me
least we
tell you.
still got the Phillies with a little bit of a
That
brighter view
basketball
than that.
team.
I will say like this core as a whole, this I wouldn't say this is it as far as this year, but it's very clear to me like the window is closing more than it is opening at
Yeah.
this stage in the game. That like even a guy like Kepler, older than I really thought, that he will be 32 at the time that the season starts next year. Bryce Harper getting up there in age, Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola not getting any younger. So I wouldn't mind trying to get a spark of youth into this roster. Johan Rojas, really the only young guy who even he will likely be platoon for this year. Boehm, who we've talked about in trade conversations at 27 years old, that's really the youngest consistent starter starter that they have. So I will say appreciate this while this is going on. I wouldn't mind trying to extend things a little bit by bringing in some youth, but the reality is this is a good baseball team, and it's going to be from start to finish this year. So any final thoughts on the list of teams that scare you or your outlook for this Phillies team before we sign off?
No, not really.
Perfect.
I do still think, I mean, the Dodgers,
Yep.
obviously,
If they can stay
they're the
healthy.
best team in baseball. I think I don't think the Phillies, I don't think the Phillies are going to win the division again. I think they'll probably be the top wild card team. I
Which
just
is
see the
fine.
Braves having I see the Braves having a big sort of year after a down year for them, where a down year for them is missing the playoffs by one game. So I'm not scared of the Braves. I just think they're set up very nice for a nice regular season.
Yeah, absolutely there. So baseball is a marathon, and we're getting ready to start off relatively soon. So pitchers and catchers reporting right around the corner at this point. Hopefully still a couple tricks up Dave Dombrowski's sleeve to put some final touches on this Phillies roster. But let us know what you guys think in the comments. Who should the Phillies even be scared of, and are they still legitimate contenders? Let us know what you guys think below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video. Me and Luke will be back talking to you next time. Peace.